Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association and presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We have a great show for you today. We're going to dive into the world of real estate, mortgage, and housing prices with our friend Bob Murphy from Connecticut. Bob is a experienced realtor. He's been in the business for decades. He's sold millions and millions of dollars in real estate and been represented clients just with great integrity and great virtue and energy for many years, and he's a good friend of the program. Bob, how are you today?
I'm doing great, John. How you doing? Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, Bob. Let's start with a prayer, shall we?
Sure.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen. St. Thomas More, pray for us.
Pray for us.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen.
Amen.
So Bob is a good man. He's based in Connecticut. Bob, how you doing? Tell the listeners that don't know you as well as I do a little bit about your family life, where you live, and how you spend your time.
Sure. Yeah, I'm in Cheshire, Connecticut, right, kind of central Connecticut. I've been married for 32 years to my beloved and beautiful wife, Lori, who's from the Chicago area. We've got 10 children, and we've got number 4 grandchild on the way. So life's been really great. And most of my kids, kids are starting to get married now. They're settling in the area. I'm helping them with real estate, of course. And I've got actually one in Pennsylvania. I know you're out in Pennsylvania, and I've got one out in Pasadena. So it's been great. It's been just a beautiful last 32 years. And I started in academics. I'm a graduate of Thomas Aquinas College. And after I graduated from TAC, we call TAC, I met my wife there. We moved to Connecticut. I'm actually originally from Connecticut, from Bethel, Connecticut, down in Fairfield County. So I'm a Connecticut guy. I know a lot about Connecticut. I moved here originally to teach. I fell in love with the academic life at Thomas Aquinas College, right? There's a great academic life. I also deepened my faith there. I mean, it's a great place to be for 4 years to really deepen your love for Christ and the Catholic faith. So I fell in love with the faith. I fell in love with the academic life. I fell in love with my wife. So it was all good.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. That was lots of love. And so I brought her out here to Connecticut because I had a job teaching at a College of Humanities right here in town for the Legionnaires of Christ. So I taught there for 20 years. And I loved it. But, with a growing family, you just need to make more money, right? I couldn't quite make enough on a teacher's salary. So I started dabbling into real estate. My background is I did a lot of construction with my father. My father owned a construction business in Bethel. So I did a lot of siding and replacement windows and additions and things of that nature. So I thought, why don't I just start buying and flipping houses? So I tried that. I missed a deal here in Cheshire. I got upset with myself because I didn't understand this. I was a young guy now. I'm back 25, 26 years old, right? I'm going to have this growing family. And I thought, I just don't know enough about real estate. So I went and got my license. So I got my real estate license. I started with William Ravis, which is a big real estate company here in Connecticut, and they've been expanding throughout New England, and now they're in Naples, Florida. I did really well with that business. The first 5 years, I rose to the top 5% of the company. And then I went out on my own because I thought, why am I giving them 30, 40% when I can do this myself? And I started my own company here in Cheshire back in 2007, Cornwall Realty Group, with a business partner, and we did really well. And then the recession hit, of course. You probably remember those days, John, right? Where 2007, 8, 9, 10, and the market just crashed. The whole subprime mess, of course. And we have a very different market today, and I'm happy to talk about the differences a little bit later. Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
But after that, I was asked by a friend who worked for a real estate company in New York City, DJK Residential, to expand their business into Connecticut. And I was happy to do so. So that's how I got involved with corporate relocation. So I stayed with DJK. I expanded their business into Connecticut. I opened an office here in Cheshire. I hired agents, and I branded, I promoted, and I grew the business for this company. They're actually owned by Servo Relocation, which is one of the largest relocation companies in the world, who does a lot of corporate relocation. And so we did really well. We were helping executives relocate to Connecticut, moving in and out of Connecticut. And I've got, I've got interesting stories, and maybe we can get into that as well. But anyway, that worked out really well. And then 2020, DJK or Serva sold their real estate company to Dwellworks. And now I'm working for another relocation company called Dwellworks LLC, and they're out of Columbus, Ohio, doing the same thing, but they had their own real estate company now called Station Cities. So I'm the broker and designated broker and sales manager for Station Cities, which is an affiliate of Dwellworks, which again, another international relocation company. So we're still enjoying a lot of corporate relocation. So, and the family life is great. My kids live in the area. Just playing pickleball with my kids at my son's house in Meriden last night. Every Sunday night we go over for dinner, we play pickleball, we have a great time. So, living the dream, John, right? I've got doing well in business. My kids are all doing well. They're all still in the faith, thanks be to God. And just trying to do my best to kind of, grow this business and keep my family happy and safe.
Bob, even in this first answer of our conversation today, I mean, it just reminds me why I always love to spend time with you. I mean, you just have so much positive energy. You're such a joyful guy. And I just love to spend time with you. Is that always the way you've been? Have you always been kind of like a very positive, very
it's funny. You're funny you mentioned that because I'm Irish, of course,
right,
Murphy, right? Yeah. So you either got the happy-go-lucky Irish or the melancholic Irish, right? So my wife's always like, "Hey, thank God I married the happy-go-lucky Irish."
Amen. No, and that's who you are. Tell us about Thomas Aquinas College. I mean, not everybody maybe has heard of TAC. The abbreviation.
Yes.
Tell us. Where's the school located? What makes it so special, do you think?
Oh, it's a great school. Yeah, I kind of stumbled upon it by accident back in the 80s. And it was thanks be to God and God's providence, sent me there. I went to University of Connecticut for a year, and that just wasn't working out for me. And there was a reconversion of my life at the time. And so it was a good place for me to go. It was a very small school at then. It's in Southern California, Santa Paula, in Ventura County. And they've got two campuses now. They just opened a new campus actually in Northfield, which is up in Massachusetts, about 4 years ago. In fact, they just had their first graduating class, I believe, last year. So they've got two campuses, and they devote themselves really to the teaching of Thomas Aquinas, right? And they are faithful to the magisterium of the church, and it's a classical liberal arts education. And you have 4 years of just studying, Plato and Aristotle and Euclid. One of my favorite mathematicians, by the way, is Euclid. Shakespeare, the great books of the West, right? The great books. It's a great books program, and all of the classes are a seminar style. So you have a tutor that opens with you have a reading. You come to class prepared. There's a tutor that opens with a question, and then you have an hour conversation. And it's just engaging, right? It's the best way because everyone's actively involved in their education. And you read great books, and you talk about great topics. So, I could go on and on and on about the school. It's just, for me, I fell in love with the academic. I had an epiphany. I never thought that you could actually understand this way and this clearly. I've never saw that in high school. I never saw it anywhere else. And then the Catholic faith was lived so vibrantly on campus. You have masses 3 times a day, confession, the sacraments are there. There's a couple of priests on staff there. The students are living, they're doing our best they can to live a virtuous lives and so forth, right? That's funny. After coming from Euclid, I thought to myself, wow, I couldn't believe people could actually have so much fun without, drinking and all the crazy things that goes on in college. You see what I mean?
Yeah. You're right. It's crazy to think that there's a bunch of like 18, 19-year-olds that are sitting around, talking about their favorite Plato verse or something. But it sounds like that's what Thomas Aquinas is about, and it's also in like an Eden-like setting, right? Just the campus.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful campus. Yeah. If you want to Google it and look at the pictures, it's nestled in the mountains there in Southern California, and it's that was another attraction for me, being 19 years old when I went there. The beach was 20 minutes away. It was an adventure, right? Yeah. And so, It
Good for
was
you.
thanks be to God. I think I contributed to the prayers of my dad actually
Mm,
that got me there. So, the rosary and
mm.
everything else. So,
Bob, your faith is such a big part of who you are, and you're so expressive about it. I'm just curious, is that always the way you've been? I mean, have you always been a very strong
well,
practicing Catholic?
since I rediscovered my faith in high
Hmm.
school, yes, yeah.
Hmm.
And I fell away a little bit during UConn years. I was there for just 1 year, but when I went to Thomas Aquinas College, it was rekindled,
Hmm.
and I've just fell in love with it ever since. I know there's been difficult times in the church, of course, right, and so forth, and there's been trying moments, but I'll be honest with you, I've never wavered for my love of Jesus Christ,
That's great.
and the sacramental life. By this way, today's the feast of the Queenship of Mary. All
Oh my
right,
gosh.
yeah, right, and so that's the fifth glorious mystery, right? So it's
Yes.
the Queenship of Mary. So a great feast day to be celebrating today.
Hail,
Yes,
Holy Queen.
hey, a Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, right? So, I mean, prayer has got to be a part of your
Yeah.
life, right? And whatever you're doing. So I always start the morning with a morning offering on the way to work. I try to end with an evening prayer, right? We try and say the rosary with the family. Not always easy to do, but what I say is at 9 o'clock, whoever's around, I want you to drop everything and let's say the family rosary.
Wow.
So we go out to the pool house. That's been our
Mm.
thing for this summer, and we try and pray the family rosary. Try to get the
Wow, that's
daily
so cool.
mass. That's hard, right? But do our best to get the daily mass. But if you live the sacramental life, and in my opinion, have a positive outlook, right? And really be grateful for what God's given you. These two words have always motivated. Be grateful and joyful. Grateful
Mm.
and joyful. Grateful and joyful. It sounds like the words of Mother Teresa, one of my favorite saints. Now she's Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. She was an inspiration for Lori and I when we first got married. Her three virtues, and these are the virtues that I try and live and I teach my children: loving trust, total surrender, and joy. They're actually etched on my ring on the inside.
Wow.
Loving trust, total surrender, and joy. Even during those difficult times in life, if you can remember those virtues, right, they'll get you through, right? So she's been a great inspiration. So again, the saints, right, prayer, the sacramental life, it's a big part of who I am.
And at the origin point, Bob, when you were a teenager and you first, really, got into your faith, I shouldn't say first, but when it became such a cemented part of your identity.
Mhm.
I mean, is there a family member or a person that you credit with that very strong foundation?
Oh yeah, that would be my father for sure. Yeah,
Beautiful.
he had kind of a reversion, I guess. He was
Mm.
raised Catholic, fell away, but then came back with a vengeance, which is really great. And so he was all about the rosary, and as a high school student, you don't want to hear that. You're praying the rosary. You used to pray the scriptural rosary, and so that's how I learned the rosary, where you say a scriptural line in between every Hail Mary, and it drags out for 45 minutes to
Wow.
an hour. I thought that's what the rosary was. you know, but now, rosary, of course, is a powerful prayer, but you can say it in 15 minutes.
Right.
So I like that version a little better.
Yeah.
But as my dad, yeah, his prayers really got me back on the straight and narrow. And he's the one that discovered the school, Thomas Aquinas College.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he was on a pilgrimage to a shrine in New Jersey with a family from Connecticut, and was talking about college. This is back in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And he's talking about, oh, my son's at UConn. What am I going to do? And so the Short family told him about Thomas Aquinas College. He told me. I applied, and by the grace of God, I got in and changed my life forever, my whole trajectory, right?
What's your dad's name, Bob?
Kevin Robert Murphy.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's remember Kevin Robert Murphy today. And to all the dads out there, just think about what Bob's saying regarding the impact that his father had on him. You can have that same effect on your sons and daughters for sure.
Yeah.
So
He's great
sorry,
too.
go ahead.
He just lives in Waterbury. He's 82 years old, and he
Good.
just put an addition on his house.
Oh
So-
my gosh.
Oh yeah, he's an inspiration.
Well, what a man. Cheers to him. So Bob, regarding your family, you have 10 children, which I think is
Yes.
a little bit above the United States average, right?
That's right.
Talk to us about having a big family, what that's like. Most of our listeners do not have 10 children or were a part of a family that had 10. What's it like to be a part of a big family?
Well, it is a beautiful thing. I mean, there's never a dull moment. That's for sure. So, you know, it's interesting. When we had our eighth child, Lori and I were thinking, I mean, there's a lot of kids, right? I mean, you're juggling a lot in life at that point, and we're homeschooling at the same time, right? So there was just a lot going on. So we have a priest friend, and we were wondering, should we have more children? And we have a priest friend in New York, and we were consulting with him, and he said, well, you know, God's been very generous with you. I mean, so, you know, you need to be generous with God. And so we continue to be open to life. And we had two more children after that. So it was a great conversation. And my Kevin, who's now 13, and my daughter, who's the caboose, Grace, who's 10. I can't think of life without them, right? It's just such a blessing. So it's a great, I mean, holidays, of course, are wonderful, right? Thanksgiving and Christmas in particular. Yeah, it's hard to get everybody together right now because everyone now, I got 3 that are married, and the kids are going in their different directions. I've got one at Thomas Aquinas College right now. One just graduated from Thomas Aquinas College, girlfriends and boyfriends, and right. So my wife, God bless her, she's the manager of the family and everything that goes on and the events and all of that. And we couldn't do it without her. But it's just been just a great joy. I have to say, just a great joy and a great blessing.
Bob, how do you handle just like, you know, the basic things in your family? Like, for instance, when the family goes somewhere, you know, together, you know, to go visit a relative or go to church or whatever, you know, let's say at those pinch points when you had like 6, 7 kids. I recognize now you have some that are adults, some that are still, you know, very
Right.
young. But like, you know, kind of in that sweet spot when you really had, you know, 6 or 7, you know,
Right.
kind of in the house and going where you were going. You know, how did you handle just like, you know, the basic stuff when the entire family was going to go do something? I mean, it just seems like it'd be a big challenge to organize everyone.
That's absolutely true. Well, first you got to buy a 12-passenger van.
Oh,
Okay.
that's great. That's great. Yeah.
So I'm on my second 12-passenger van, actually. You know, Ford makes a great 12-passenger van. They do make 15 passengers, but that was just too big for my wife. It was like a bus, right? So we're on our second 12-passenger van. So and then my dad lives in the area, and he was a tremendous help.
That's
So
great.
when we're going off in different directions, whether it be football or baseball or soccer now is huge, or Irish step dancing, or we had you know, the Boy Scouts. My boys were involved with the boys. We'd had 3 drivers, right? And then when the kids got older and became drivers, that was a huge help as well. But again, it takes a woman like my wife, Lori, to be able to organize and manage all of those things and the spreadsheets and the calendars. And then of course we make 3 trips to Costco a week as well. So but it's you know, you take it a day at a time. You
Yeah.
really do. You know what I mean? You don't look
Sure.
too far in the future or too far in the past, but you take it a day at a time, and you just really, you know, the older I get, John, you know, the years went so fast. I can't believe I had 10 kids. I never thought I would have 10 kids when I was a young man, right? And now I've got 3 at home, right? And like, where did the years go? So, you know, you really want to, especially those younger years, those are such precious years. And for anyone that's listening out there, young children, really just don't take that for granted. I mean, those are so precious to really, you know, take advantage of those years and enjoy your children's childhoods and things, right?
You know, Bob, it's interesting. We're at a point in our nation's national conversation where, you know, there's you know, people out there that say, you know, that we shouldn't have children or we shouldn't complete pregnancies because children will you know, keep you from having, you know, enough stuff, or maybe limit
Right.
your professional opportunities, or, you know, keep you from getting that promotion or something. It sounds like you have a different view on that. I mean, because you've had a lot of kids, and you've enjoyed professional success. You've done some cool stuff. You haven't missed out on anything in life, but you've done
Not
it
at
with a
all.
big family. What would
Not
you
at
say to
all.
those that say that you know, we shouldn't have kids? I mean, we want to go to the Bahamas once a year. I mean, you know, what would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, those things are temporal and fleeting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
important to go on vacation and things. But I mean, like my dad always says, you know, whenever we had a child, he would say, another soul to glorify God for all
Yeah.
eternity,
Yeah.
right? And so now we got 10 new souls to glorify God for all eternity. And, you know, finally, your joy is in the small things and the day-to-day things in life, right? And it's spending time with your family. So when you have a big family, it's just another person's like, how can you know, divide your love that way? And I say, my answer is, you're not dividing your love. It's with every new child, it's like you've increased the love
Mm,
in the family.
mm,
There's no division. It's only a multiplication, right?
yes.
Of love. So I encourage large families. I know it's can be scary. um, but a trust in God. God will provide. God will
Yeah.
provide.
And that's part of
And
the problem in our society too, isn't it? Like
sorry.
that must be God calling. He agrees with
Yes,
everything you
yeah, I
just said.
had
So,
to.
so Bob, I mean, I think that's part of the problem in our society too, is that everybody thinks the pie is limited, right? So
Right,
it's like it's a zero sum game, like we learned in
right.
college, right? Like we all have to go after this because there's only so much prosperity, so much wealth, so much success to go around. So we need to be very cutthroat about it. It's kind of like the tie-in you just said to your family. I mean, it's not a finite thing. Your love has infinite dimensions.
That's right.
So your capacity level only grew with the children you have. It's just like in our society, we shouldn't be envious or jealous of those that are achieving success or doing good things or seem to be content in life. That there's an infinite amount of that to go around too.
Absolutely. You should celebrate that, right?
Yeah,
And you yourself can partake in it, right? That's exactly right. It's a great country we live in still. There's so much opportunity. There's never been the kind of opportunity that we see today. With the internet and with all the different businesses you can run and the remote jobs. I mean, the sky's the limit, truly, in this country right now, right? Even though, there's talk of recession and all of that, we still have a pretty strong, vibrant economy. So, and with me in the real estate industry, in the housing market, we're still in multiple offer situations in the state of Connecticut.
that's great.
Given that you see all these headlines online of how there's a recession looming and the market's slowing down, interest rates are on the increase, and that's true. But for me, being boots on the ground in the industry, working with buyers and sellers, there's still a lot of vibrant activity going on
Well, and
in the
let's start
marketplace.
let's pivot to the real estate stuff because that's your expertise, Bob. You've enjoyed so
Sure.
much success in real estate, and you've served customers and clients well for decades in Connecticut. One of the hottest real estate markets in America, some of the most precious housing stock in our
Oh
entire
yeah.
country. Such a great place to own and live, buy a home. So this is my starting point going into this conversation. I mean, it seems like in recent years we've had a very unusual stretch in the real estate market, especially with mortgage rates a couple of years ago dipping to historic lows. My
Hmm.
own interest rate, which I secured a couple of years ago, I know is far lower than anybody I know, and that wasn't my genius. That was just me timing things right.
Yeah, good.
But it was available at that point, and myself and a lot of other people got very lucky in that moment. Another narrative that we deal with is that there's not enough inventory out there. That there's we need to build more homes. We need to have more opportunities for people to buy. And then there's other pressures going on. Right now we're in a situation where mortgage rates have ticked back up considerably, over
Hmm.
2% in the past year. The 30-year mortgage rate right now is well above 5%. It was in the twos just last year. Inflation obviously
Yep.
ties into that as well. I also read last week that rents are at historic highs. So it's not just the housing costs or the mortgage rates, but it's also for those that aren't buying but are renting that are
Right.
seeing those pressures as well. So that's the big picture. But you have a different perspective on the ground, selling homes every day. It sounds like you're a little bit more bullish than what you might read on the cover of the USA Today. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I am a little bit more bull. I mean, I'm not seeing it, and
Yeah.
here in Connecticut, it's like I'm tired of being in multiple offer situations, right? I'd like to be able to like negotiate a deal, like make an offer, and no one else makes an offer, and negotiate a deal for my clients, like the good old days, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
right.
mean, we're still in those situations. I mean, and all price points as well. So, I mean, it is true. Interest rates have ticked up, right? I mean, you're right. They were hovering around 3% last year, a little bit lower than that, 2.7, 2 7/8 and so forth. Now we're at 5.5%. They actually ticked up last month in June to 6. Now they come back down again to 5.5%. And it does affect the market. I mean, it really does affect the market. In fact, let me just share a little bit of statistics with you about what's happening nationwide. And I got this from the National Association of Realtors. It's a great website. Just you can Google it. It's NAR dot realtor, and they have great information. But if you just think about this in terms of inflation and what's happening in the marketplace. So back in 2019, the median priced existing single family home that sold was about $274,000. Okay. Mortgage rates were 4% then, okay, back in 2019. So your principal and interest payment was $1,054, really, really affordable. Okay. And that was about 15 or 16% of people's median income. The median income back in 2019 was $80,000, $80,888 to be exact. Okay. A year later, 2021, now the median sale price has gone up. It's gone to $357,100. The mortgage rates now fell to 3%, so it became still more affordable. Your principal and interest mortgage payment would be about $1,200, still very affordable. And the median income per family rose to almost $88,000. So we're doing real well. Okay. Now jump to June of this year, 2022. Okay. In 2022, the median priced property right now, well, this is in June, it's come down a little bit, $423,000.
Wow.
That's a 18.5% increase in median priced existing single family homes in 1 year, right? Almost 20%, 18.5%. The mortgage rate is now about 5.5%. So now for a family, now the median income has also risen. It's about $91,000, okay? But it hasn't kept up with inflation or housing prices, of course, right? Because that was an increase of 4.5% in your median income per family, but the median housing price increased 18.5%, right? So now a family that brings in about $92,000 is trying to afford a property of $423,000. They're going to be paying close to $2,000 a month in principal and interest. That is going to have an effect, and it has. And we are starting to see things slow a little bit. And in Connecticut, I mean, in other markets, I think we've seen it. I've read the headlines: Florida and Arizona and Las Vegas and some of these other markets that had this huge upturn, right? And the market are really coming down. I mean, this month we've had a 6%, I think, decrease in the number of sales from last month. 20% decrease from last year. So the number of existing homes that are selling nationwide now has dropped 20%. Okay. So things are starting to slow. And I think there are pockets of the places in the country where you had a tremendous uptick in the market and in median sale prices. But in Connecticut, I mean, I do my business here in Connecticut, everywhere in Connecticut, including Fairfield County. And that includes, Greenwich and Darien and, the big markets. We are seeing the market's stabilizing. Housing pricing isn't going up as quickly, but I don't see any in the near future. I don't see any drastic drop in home prices. I guess that's my take. And there's still money out there. People are still buying. I still have cash buyers.
Wow.
So, and that's the difference I was alluding to earlier, back in 2006, 7, and 8, when we had that whole housing crisis and the mortgage debacle and the subprime mess. That wasn't real money, in my opinion, right? Lenders were lending money to people that couldn't afford these homes. They were lending to anybody with a pulse. That's not happening now in this market. This is a real economy. I think we've got real money out there. We've got cash buyers, and these buyers are being vetted by these lenders, and they've got great credit scores. So the economy is strong. Even though we're headed into a recession, it's still strong. And I'm still bullish, actually, on the market.
Yeah, clearly. Bob, talk to us a little bit about what it was like during the COVID-19, phenomenon, I suppose.
Yeah.
Starting in early 2020 on through the present. I mean, again, what we heard from so many in the media was that there was a mass evacuation from urban cores like New York City,
Yes.
and perhaps places like Connecticut were beneficiaries of that. Just walk us through what that, I guess, 18-month, to 2-year, cycle was like for you, starting in
Sure.
March of 2020 as a realtor.
Well, it's interesting. When the pandemic hit, back in, what was that, January, February 2020, right?
2020, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody knew what was happening, right? Lockdowns everywhere. I didn't know what was going to happen in the real estate market. I just thought that the economy was going to just, tank for a number of years. But the exact opposite happened in the housing market. Like you said, there was an exodus out of New York City, right? New Jersey and Connecticut were the beneficiaries of that. All of a sudden, you had people that were in New York that weren't even thinking about like leaving, were thinking about either buying a second home, right? Or moving altogether to the suburbs, right? And that would be Lower Fairfield County, and even pushing up into where I am in New Haven County. And what it was a trickle effect. The New Yorkers that moved in, and there were tens of thousands of New Yorkers that moved into Connecticut over the last couple of years, really created a tremendous supply problem, right? So what happened was the supply of homes diminished, right? With low inventory, and you had a tremendous amount of buyers. And so that's when this whole multiple offer situation began. It was probably, February, March, April of 2020. Now I was the beneficiary of that because I had a lot of listings as well. So my listings were selling quickly.
Oh, that's great.
And I had multiple offer situations. But John, I've been doing this 20 years. I've never seen anything like this in my life in the real estate market. It's just the amount of buyers that were out there, the amount of cash buyers that were out there was phenomenal. And so had to get, and then, I work with buyers and sellers. So for my buyers, poor Connecticut buyers, they were competing with New York City people, which, the average income, of course, a lot higher in New York City. And there were a lot of cash buyers, and it was tough to compete. So you had to be really creative with the kinds of offers you were making, right? And so, everything from like no inspections, waiving appraisals, waiving financing, it just got really loony. So we're not quite there. I mean, things have calmed down a little bit. We're still trying to be creative with our financing. One thing I did see during this market that I never saw before was an escalation clause in your offer. Now here's how it escalated. Here's what you say. I'll buy your house. I'll pay $500,000 for it, but I'll pay $550. In the contract, you say I'll pay $2,000 above your highest and best offer, up to say $600,000.
Wow.
Right. So say the house is listed for $475, and that'd be common. I'm not kidding. An offer would come in at $500 with an escalation clause up to $600,000. I have never seen that before. And on the listing side, when I list a house and I will receive 3 or 4 offers and they all have escalation clauses, it's hard to interpret them all, right? Because they're all kind of competing. So finally, I had to go back to my seller and say, this is crazy. Can we just go back to all of these buyers and just say, listen, forget the escalation clauses. Just give me your highest and best offer.
There you go.
And that's been kind of the mantra really over the last 2 years. If you're serious about buying a property, you just got to go in with your highest and best offer. Yeah. And
so Bob, I mean, what's very interesting is, this has kind of been a good time for you, it sounds like, in terms of your business.
It reminds me of Charles Dickens, right? These are the best of times. These are the worst of times. So on the listing side, it's the best of times. On the buying side, it really is a tough time. I've never worked so hard in real estate than the last year.
Wow.
I have never worked so hard. So, they've been good times though, lucrative times. But I still have clients that I made. In fact, I got this young couple. I just made an offer in Simsbury. And I thought we were going to get this one. It was listed for $390. We made a $425, $35,000 above the asking price. There were multiple offers. We had in good terms, and we lost it. And this was, I think, the 10th or 11th offer I've made for this couple. And I've been working with them for over a year and a half. So, so for buyers, it's still a tough market. So, but for selling property, if you have a property and you need to sell it, it's still a great time to sell, especially if you already own a property, you have someplace to go where you don't have to buy something. That's a home run, right? But here, my big thing right now, though, and I tell my kids this as well, and I flipped some homes in my day as well over the years, and I kick myself. I wish I had held on to those properties because, we can talk about this as well. Part of the whole low inventory problem is that these huge private equity firms are buying up single family homes. So, and this began back in 2010 after what I call kind of the Great Recession, right, of the housing market. All these private equity firms started buying up single family homes and turning them into rental income. And so that's also been, and we haven't been kind of keeping up with the demand, the new construction homes. And so that's caused a problem, right? For buyers.
Hey, Bob, drill down on that because that's been covered a lot in like the Wall Street Journal and other media outlets. I mean, talk to us
Yeah.
about what that really is and why we should be concerned with it.
Yeah, I think we should be concerned, although, it's hard to know if it's the chicken or the egg thing, because I think these private equity saw that there's money to be made with single family homes. And they saw the collapse, and they thought, it was a great buying time back in 2010 and 11 and 12. And so these private equity firms started buying up all of these property. And there's smaller ones. Invitation Homes is one of them. It's a private equity firm, but they're all funded by pretty much Blackstone, the Blackstone Group. You've probably heard of the Blackstone Group. They manage, I think, $880 billion in assets. And they fund these smaller private equity firms in buying these single family homes. I think just last quarter of this year, 86,000 homes were sold to private equity, just in the last quarter of this year. And so there's been hundreds of thousands of homes that have been taken off the table and are now part of these, private equity firms, and they're turned into rental properties, right? And the rents are, they're getting good rents. I mean, as you said earlier in the podcast, rents are up, right? And they saw there's money to be made. Now, here's the problem, right? Now you say, okay, what's the problem? Why doesn't just home builders go out and build new homes? Home builders, and we've got a subdivision right here in Cheshire, their homes that they build, you can't get anything for under $600,000. All the new construction homes are 600, 700, 800. Single families, young families getting started, the Gen Xers and the millennials, they can't afford that. You see what I mean? So here's what's happening. Private equity's coming in. They're buying up all the $200, $300, $400,000 homes. They're renting them. The Gen X and the millennials can't afford them, so they're forced to rent. And the home builders are building $600,000, $700,000 home, and that market's starting to tank right now, right? So because there's no profit in building a $300,000 home. So I've got some builder friends. I'm like, get out there and start building some raised ranches for $300,000 because that's what we need. So in my opinion, anyway, there is still low inventory. We don't have enough housing. We just don't. And there's still a high demand. So even though, there's all this talk about a recession and everything else and maybe a market crash, I just don't see it.
It's fascinating. Bob, talk to us about another issue too. You hear a lot about migration from certain parts of the country to the others. Mm-hmm. So, the story goes that everybody's leaving the quote unquote high tax states in the Northeast, especially, but also the Midwest, which might not be as high tax, but it's still cold and there's no beaches or whatever.
Right.
And kind of again, the narrative is everybody's going to Florida, everybody's going to Texas, everybody's going to Arizona, maybe
Tennessee. I heard
Tennessee's big. Tennessee's big. Yeah, and there's data to support this. I don't want to suggest it's a myth. I mean, the numbers prove it. But it sounds like, again, I mean, if you're in multiple offer situations and your business is as robust as it's been, what's going on? Is everybody leaving or is everybody staying?
Right.
I don't really get it, Bob. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there are people, there is the boomers that are selling and they're moving to the warmer climates, right? That's going on, of course.
Yeah.
But, there are, I think the economy's picked up. There's now, again, my specialty is corporate relocation. So I'm starting to see, during the pandemic, I didn't see any relocation. It just dried up altogether. Mm-hmm. There was no companies were not moving people around. That's another big thing that happened after the pandemic, by the way, is people they got to work from home, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was big too, by the way. You needed home offices in the last 2 years. You had to buy a house with a home office, right? So with all these remote workers, you could live anywhere in the country. So why live in the city where it's expensive? So that was part of the fuel that fueled the people getting out of these expensive, markets like New York City and Los Angeles and so forth, Las Vegas and so forth, right? So people were kind of moving out to the suburbs where it was more affordable and they could work from home. Maybe they had to commute one day a week, take the train into the city or something like that. So that was a big part of the exodus or the opportunity, I should say, right? Hey, we can work from home now. I don't have to be stuck in a cubicle in an office in a city environment. So that's kind of still happening. I think I know a lot of corporations want people to come back to work, but I'm not sure if we're going to get people back to work like 9 to 5, 5 days a week anymore, right? It's just the whole custom and our habits have changed, probably for the better, in my opinion, right? I think it's healthy for people to stay, maybe work 1 or 2 days from home rather than spend time on a train or in a car and in traffic and all of that, right?
Yeah, think of all the
So
benefits you get, being around your family. Maybe,
yeah,
having a little
exactly.
more time with their kids, be there for your spouse.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
there are great benefits. So I think people are they're looking at an opportunity to just, buy a, if you're in the city, it's like, I've always wanted a house with 2 acres. Now this might be the time to do that, right? So and I want peace. So, when I took my principal and practice class way back 20 years ago, and when I was getting my license, of course, you've got to go through the classes and everything and take the tests. But I always remember that real estate's all about the quiet enjoyment of your property. That always stuck with me, right?
yes.
Quiet enjoyment. That's what
Hmm.
people want. They want a place that they can go and enjoy their family life quietly without just being disturbed, right? And they want to live their life that way. So I think a lot of people in the city say, you know what, that quiet enjoyment really is attractive right now.
That's an important principle in the law too. That's an important legal principle, quiet enjoyment, because it's supposed to
Yes.
be something that you're right. That's almost, I want to say it's a right, but it's certainly a characteristic of
Yeah.
home ownership that people associate with owning a home. I think that's well said. So what about housing prices generally? Because I mean, what you'll hear
Yeah.
from a lot of people, especially millennials, Gen Zers, et cetera, is especially with the burden of student loans and
Yeah.
increasing costs due to inflation and other things. We just don't think we'll ever own a home. I mean, it's just too expensive. How would we ever accumulate $100,000 for a down payment or something? I
Right.
mean, comment on that, Bob. What's the future of home ownership generally?
Yeah, I mean, it's the American dream, right? It's
Mm,
private property. That's what we're all about in this country. So
mm,
what we got to do, whatever we got to do to make sure people can buy homes,
mm,
but responsibly, of course, right? They got to be able to afford them. I do feel for the younger generation right now trying to buy a home. I think prices will ease. I'm hoping salaries will increase and so
mhm.
forth. I mean, right now we are a double income economy, right? You got to have two incomes to really afford a home. Which it's not like the days where the one spouse worked and the other stayed home. Those are difficult times. But again, the opportunity with the internet and all the side hustles and things can really help generate income. I think there's great hope for young people, especially if they're so tech savvy, right? They can like start a TikTok station and get 100 million views and make $10,000 a month. I mean, you see these things, right? Or a YouTube channel. I mean, the opportunities are great to just work remotely. Here's what I tell my kids, though, and I think and if I had my time back, I would have done this as well. I encourage them to buy a duplex or a threeplex starting off in life. They tend to be a little more affordable, but you get the tenant to defray, at least pay most of your mortgage. And so if you can buy a two-family, live in one side, you start your family, you have a young family, you rent out the other side, right? The tenant is paying or defraying most of your mortgage. You can save a lot of money that way. You save money over the next 3 to 5 years. You move out and buy a single family home. You hold on to your duplex. You rent the other side out and you keep it, and for your whole life, right? Because now your tenants are paying your principal and interest. I mean, these hedge fund managers, they're not stupid. Real estate is a stable asset. It appreciates over the long term. You appreciate that asset. The tenants are paying your principal and interest, and you might even be making a cash flow at the same time. And so by the time you're retired, you can sell that asset or go out and buy another rental property. So I am so bullish on buying rental properties right now, and I encourage young people, if you can do it, even if you can find private equity, private lenders to do it. I've got methods of doing it. I'm doing one myself right now, and I am so bullish on helping whoever wants to do that because it's a great way to just to make a kind of a monthly cash flow and secure income for the future. So
Bob, talk
that's
to me
what
about the life of a realtor because
it's great.
I mean, here's what I see, at least in my little
Yeah.
town. I mean, the realtors, they seem like they work extremely hard. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Saturdays and Sundays they're running from one showing to another. They're always
Yeah.
seem to be kind of on the move. It seems like they take calls and texts at all hours of the night. I mean, these are extremely hardworking people. Todd, do it, and I'm not suggesting the other professions don't work hard. Of
Right.
course they do, but it just seems like when you're a realtor, you are always on. Am I right about that, Bob? What's it like?
Yeah, you are. It is a 24/7 thing, but you really got to learn to manage it, especially when you have a big family, right? I'm also a premier agent with Zillow, right? Zillow's kind of cornered the market. Everyone looks at Zillow, right? So I get calls from Zillow all the time. And it's normally Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I'm at church, right? So I have to set parameters. I don't take any calls Sunday morning. That's my time for God. It's my time for my family. And so I will show properties Sunday afternoon. I just showed a property actually yesterday, or was it yesterday? Sunday? Yeah, yesterday, Sunday afternoon down in Wilton, Connecticut. But that's the life of a realtor. I mean, you just got to learn to manage it, and don't let the business run you, but you run your business, right, as it were. But you definitely need to be, you got to work with buyers and their time frames as well. And a lot of times they can only see properties on the weekends or in the afternoons, right? If they're working and they don't have a home job, or they can work from home, they're at the office. Largely your life begins at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 in the summer times anyway. And then it's weekends, right? So I'm always grateful when there's a Saturday, I don't have to show any properties. Boy, do I take advantage of that. I spend time with my kids. I'll swim in the pool. So, and vacation is tough too, because you're always taking your laptop computer on vacation.
Sure.
I do have other realtors and brokers that cover for me, but nobody knows your clients and your business like you, right?
That's right.
And so what I'll do is I'll probably, every time I go on vacation, 2 or 3 hours in the morning, I'm always doing real estate. And then I'll try and take the rest of the day in the afternoon off, right? That kind of thing.
There's a lot of money in it though, and if you're good at it,
Yeah,
you can make some cash and provide for your family and have a good life. And
absolutely.
one thing that always surprised me, Bob, when I think back to my own upbringing, I mean, nobody ever suggested that I check out real estate. And now as an adult, I mean, having friends like you and others,
Yeah,
I know that for one, there's a lot of points of entry.
sure.
Part-time, hybrid, full-time, just being an investor, there's a lot of
Oh,
ways
yeah,
to penetrate it. And it's unfortunate that young people don't know about that, because it's a
right.
great way to, one, just have a great career if you choose to focus on that full time,
Sure.
or you do it as a side hustle, or do it as part of your your overall game or whatever. I just wish young people knew about all the potential in real estate, right?
Yeah, exactly. Most people get involved in real estate on a part-time basis because
Yeah,
it's hard to make a full income because it's commission based, right?
right.
So it's hard to jump right into it. I know there has been some people that have done that, but normally, like me, I taught for 20 years and I was
Yeah.
teaching and doing real estate. I was juggling both those things for a long time until I could transition finally over to real estate full time, right? So you got to find a way to make it work. It is kind of a noble job. I really do enjoy it in many, many ways. I mean, helping people find their dream home and so forth. I mean, because I look at us as sojourners on this planet, right? We're here for a short time. Our heavenly home is, of course, in heaven with God and all the saints, right? And so it always reminds me of the end of the Two Gentlemen of Verona, Shakespeare's play. At the very end of that play, I forget the character's name, but it's a comedy and it's a happy ending. And the character states, we're all happy. He says it's one feast, one house, one mutual happiness. I thought that is the best description of heaven I've ever heard, right? One feast, one house, one mutual happiness. Now, not only do we want that in heaven, but we want that here on earth as well, right? And so we want to be able to have a place like that quiet enjoyment we were talking about. That's the one house. We want to be able to celebrate life. That's the one feast, right? And of course, we all want to be happy in this life, right? So we want a mutual happiness. So a great play. I recommend everybody reads it, right? The Two Gentlemen of Verona.
Such a beautiful thought. Thank you for that, Bob. Let's get into some practical tips real quick. So, for
Sure.
instance, if I'm looking for a house, and I'm pretty open in terms of the town it's in or whatever, but I really just want to get a good piece of property that's likely to appreciate in value, and is good buy for my family. What are
Sure.
some of the attributes that house should I looking at? I mean, like cul-de-sac. Does it have a pool?
Right.
How many bedrooms?
Yeah.
Kitchens refurbished. What are kind of like those top 3 or 4 characteristics of a home that you're like, wow, this is definitely a good buy. This is a great investment for your family.
Okay. Yeah. Great question, John. So cul-de-sacs are great. that quiet enjoyment, right? So there's no through traffic. If you can get a house on a cul-de-sac or a quiet street, 3 bedrooms, you have to have 3 bedrooms, even if you have a smaller family or just the two of you or something, because it's for appreciation and for resale. People don't like 2 bedrooms. 2 full baths, 1.5. You can get away with 1.5. If you have a half a bath in your home, I highly recommend trying to turn it into a full bath. Put in a shower somewhere. I'm actually doing an investment property right now that I bought, and I'm going to rent out, and it has a half bath. I added a shower to it. Now it's a 2 full bath. You've increased your value tremendously by just adding that shower. So you need 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths. It's got to be above, 1,800 square feet. 18 to 2,500 square feet. That's the sweet spot, right? That's the size many people are looking for. And so, a level lot. People like level backyards, especially for children. Sloping and all of that, it's very hard. Maybe some woods and some privacy from your neighbor, some distance from your neighbor and so forth. City water, city sewer, and gas. I call that the trifecta in real estate, okay? So city water, city sewer, and gas, because you're not dealing with septic tanks. And I've got a septic tank. I just replaced my septic tank, and it's no fun. It's a lot of money.
Really expensive. Yeah.
It's expensive. Yeah, 25 grand to replace
Wow.
your septic system. I love my well water, I'll have to say. Okay, I could bottle it and sell it. That's how good it is.
Wow.
But you know what? When you get trouble with it, it's trouble. So most people like city water, and then gas is the fuel of choice. In Connecticut, it's oil, right? It's really a diesel fuel, but we call it oil. But that's you have to have a servicing of the furnace once a year, and it's kind of smelly and everything else. It doesn't burn as clean as gas. So if you could get city water, city sewer, and gas, again, I call that the trifecta in real estate. Oh, and new roof. If you can get a new roof, boy, that's a home run, right? And also, you got to be careful here in Connecticut. We've had problems with foundations up in the northeast corner. There's this pyrotite that got into the mixture of the concrete, and these poor people up there, their foundations are crumbling.
Oh no!
So you got to make sure you've got a very sound foundation, right? And it's also good to have updated new mechanicals, right? Your furnace, your AC. I mean, that's what people want. That's what I'm finding in the marketplace. If you can find something like that, you're going to be a happy person in a happy family.
Bob, it always impresses me how popular HGTV is. It's always one of the highest rated cable programs.
Right.
I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers, watch, House Hunters and Flip or Flop, right, or Christina on the Coast and all these. I'm wondering, Bob, when you watch those shows, is that anything what it's like to be a realtor? I mean, or is it total fantasy?
There's a lot of fantasy there. I don't watch it very much. Maybe I've seen one episode of one of those things.
Yeah.
The pricing is just so low. I mean, it's a fantasy. I've done some flips. I know how much things cost, and it's nowhere near what you need to spend on.
Yeah, on Flip or Flop specifically. I mean, every time they flip a house, they net like $100,000.
Yeah,
more
no,
on
that's not.
It's never even close.
Yeah, if you can net 20, you're doing really well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a total fantasy, right? But that does remind me, though, another thing in the house that you're looking for is updated bathrooms and kitchens, right? That adds a lot of value. And you can do it for, people think, when you think of a kitchen, you think $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. You don't have to spend that kind of money. I mean, you could get really nice cabinetry at Lowe's or Home Depot, and for very reasonable, and install them. And you can really, anyway, I mean, it depends on how big your kitchen is and everything. But with granite and with new cabinetry and a new floor, I mean, you could do it for $15,000 to $20,000. You can do it pretty reasonably.
And you're gonna get that back. Yeah.
You'll get it back. Kitchens and baths, you get that money back for sure.
All right, Bob. Here's your chance to take a shot at the for sale by owner movement. I know realtors hate for sale by owner. Talk to me why for sale by owner is a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I get it though, right? I mean, you're saving 5 to 6% in commission, right? That's
everyone gets that.
Yeah, that's the draw, right?
Yeah.
But it's not easy to sell it. It's not easy selling a house, right? There's just so much that goes into it, and there's so many moving parts. I'm biased because I'm a broker, and I do think the commission we do make is reasonable, and it's what we should be making on these deals. And it's just dealing with buyers and attorneys and appraisers and home inspections and all of those things is very time consuming. It's a full-time job. That's why there's an industry called, real estate, and there's realtors. It's a full-time job. So unless you want to devote like your full time to it, and maybe have somebody to consult, perhaps that might be a good way to go, the for sale by owner, but I don't recommend it. I think you end up actually losing money, because if you get a good broker, a good realtor, they're going to help you even make more money on your property. You may end up giving up a lot of money on the table because, you lack negotiation skills or something, right? So, at least to consult with a broker, or somebody who has experience with buying and selling real estate, if you're going to go that route. So
Talk about the benefits of home ownership too, versus renting, because I'm sure we have a lot of people out there that are renting and have been deterred for a lot of reasons, to buying a house. I'm guessing that you would advise people to buy houses as soon as they can with their financial situation. What are some of the benefits? I mean, obvious one that comes to mind is for instance, in my situation, my housing expenses are fixed for many years
yes,
to come because of my non-adjustable rate mortgage.
yeah, right,
Whereas if I was renting, they could go up at any time
that's right.
based on somebody else's decision. The mortgage and interest tax deduction is another one that comes up frequently. Talk to us, Bob, about your top two or three reasons to own versus rent.
Yeah. First of all, it's the American dream. I think there's an
Yeah,
impulse in all of us that want to own a piece of the rock, right?
yeah,
It's about private property. And you want a place, yeah, you can call your own, right? I think there's something natural about that we all have. But home ownership, I mean, you know, you could pay $1,500 or $2,000 towards rent, or you could have that money go towards principal and interest. And at
right.
least you're buying something for that money, and rather than just throwing it away, right? Now, of course, if you ever looked at an amortization calculator and the way amortization works, when I discovered that, I was like, whoa, who came up? The bankers came up with this, right? Because they make all of their money up front in the first 10 years because of that principal and interest. Most of your payment, your monthly payment, goes to their interest, and very, very little goes to principal, right? So if you're thinking about buying a home, you really want to stay there 5 or 6 years at least. Don't buy a home for 2 years and then sell it. You're not going to make any money that way. You're going to lose money that way. Yeah, well, most likely, for the most part, right? So why not put that money towards paying off something that's actually an appreciating, stable asset, especially if you're thinking of raising a family and holding on to it, right? And then it's your home. You can do what you want with it, right? You can paint it. You're not beholden to anybody else, other than planning and zoning and all the typical town ordinances you've got to confide with and all that combined. But other than that, I mean, it's your property. So I think it's a good investment over the long term, especially. See, I mean, I've been in my house now, gosh, how many years? 18 years. And it's my second home. And I've got a tremendous amount of equity. I mean, anyone that's owned a home now has equity because like you, John, or you bought several years ago, you've got equity in your house. You can use that equity also. And that's why not only am I a broker, but I do buy and hold and flip properties because I hate seeing my equity sitting in my property doing nothing for me. So I'll get a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. I'll take that HELOC out and I'll go buy a property with it, right? Fix it up, flip it, I make some money, I pay the HELOC back. You can't do that if you don't own an asset, right? If you don't own a home, you can't take advantage of the equity in your home. Again, that's going to take time. It takes 10, 15 years to build up that kind of equity. But you can use the equity to increase your net value. So that's another reason over the long term. But I think finally, if you're going to raise a family, there's nothing like having a stable home environment for your children, right? That you own, that you take pride in, you take care of, and it's a great witness to your children and a great place to.
Bob, one thing that people might not instantly think of when they look at a realtor like yourself who's built his own business is that, I mean, you have a powerful entrepreneurial story, right?
Yes.
I mean, like you were a teacher, presumably with the 401k and the medical benefits and all that. And you walked away from that to become a business owner and build something that had your name on it. And I mean, what was that like for you, especially balancing it with your family and the other things you had going on? Tell us just a little bit about your entrepreneurial story.
Yeah, so I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I just love that. I admire people that take the risks and go out and make things happen. Um, I've always wanted to kind of own my own business and do my own thing. So real estate looked like a good opportunity to do that. So that's when, gosh, when I first got involved, when I was a young man, and I tried to buy my first property. It really hurt me. I was so it was. I'll tell you, this is back in 19. Oh gosh, no, maybe early 2000. Yeah, there was a property in Cheshire. It was a distressed property, and it was, weeds were growing all around it, right? And I got on the phone. This is, just the internet was just kind of a thing at that point. And it wasn't like we had the Googles and all of that. But I ended up finding the owner who lived down south somewhere, and I made him an offer for $22,000 for this property. It was a cape, like a 3-bedroom cape, but terrible. $22,000 in Cheshire. And so he accepted it. But a week before the closing, I got cold feet. I lost a lot of money in the whole, remember the tech wreck in 2000? I lost a lot of money in technology and so forth. So I got cold feet. I pulled out of the deal. 2 weeks later, now I gave the seller the idea, like, yeah, I need to sell this property. He ended up selling it for $48,000, not even doing anything to the property. And I realized this, and I said, wow, I just left $20,000 on the table, right? And so my entrepreneurial spirit's just like, I got to do something here, right? I got to learn this business. I just didn't understand the business as well. And then again, that's what motivated me to jump into real estate and get my license and go from there. But it was really rewarding. And then from there, I never looked back. I said, that's where, it's like a principle that God uses itself, where you bring good out of evil, right? There's a lot of evil and suffering in the world, but God allows it to bring about a greater good, right? So bad things happen, but if you can learn by those bad experiences, right? And the older I get, I'm tired of learning about my bad decisions, right? I'd rather learn by somebody else's. But again, life is a growing process. You make a lot of decisions in life. Some are good, some are bad. The bad decisions, you learn by them and you grow. And so with my entrepreneurial, drive, I just I find it exciting. I just really find it exciting, and it motivates me to just look for the next great deal.
Right, which you have. And Bob, let me ask you about this. There's a number of figures in our culture that have achieved, popular recognition through their prowess at real estate. I'm thinking of people like Dave Ramsey or Grant
Sure.
Cardone or
Oh,
some of
yeah.
these guys. I mean, are there any of them that you respect, that you like, that some of our viewers and listeners might turn to for real estate tips and just something that's interesting to follow?
Yeah, I like Dave Ramsey. I just got turned on to Grant Cardone, so I've been seeing some like videos of his and so forth.
Yeah.
He's a little too flashy for me, maybe,
Right?
right? Have you seen some of his
I
stuff?
have, yeah,
A little too
yeah.
salesman-like, and
Yep.
he's always trying to get you to click you there and register
Yeah.
for his seminars and all of it.
It's very driven on materialism too. It's like, look at my private jet. I mean, you
Oh
could have this
yeah,
too. And Ramsey's message is much more substantive. I think it's
yeah.
about
That's
liberating
exactly my
yourself,
take.
being self-sufficient. Yeah, right.
That's right. It takes sacrifice,
Yeah.
self-sacrifice, right? Yeah. So I think I'd prefer Dave Ramsey over Grant Cardone
Yeah.
at this
No,
point.
Ramsey's
So
good.
yeah.
Well, Bob, as we close, or start to get to the end of our time, together here. I mean, just would you give us one more anecdote about what it's been like to be as successful in real estate as you are, and to be an accomplished entrepreneur? You've done all that while being good to your faith, while supporting the church and charities you care about, raising 10 kids, having a great relationship with your wife. I mean, you've done a lot of things, and that people say are tough to do or impossible to do, but you've pulled it off. I mean, like,
Yeah.
just encourage our listeners a little bit that you can do all these things simultaneously, and like going back to the beginning, you can do it with a joyful heart and with a sense of optimism that really defines who you are.
Exactly. Yeah. No, grateful, gratitude and joyfulness. It's just, I tend to look at the glass as half full, right? I mean, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of difficulties in life, but I look at those as opportunities, and you will find, the silver lining, the old cliche. There are silver linings, and they're out there. They're everywhere. It's the way God works Himself, right? He allows suffering to bring about a greater good. And so we have to find them. We have to use, our minds and our wit to find those things. So, but you surround yourself by family and love. You have a sacrificial spirit, right? I love saying, this of course is the gospel message. Christ himself, right, is to do for others, right? And so forth. St. Francis, right? Do for others before you do for yourself. It's the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself, and so forth. So as long as you kind of have that spirit, you wake up with a joyful spirit, a grateful spirit, begin your day with prayer. Thank God for your blessings, right? I always make an act of contrition, and then think about your blessings, right? Go through your blessings and just be reminded of all the good things, not the bad things, the good things in life. That'll motivate you. It'll motivate you to get out of bed and go make things better for yourself and for your family and for people, right? So,
well, Bob, I always come away from our conversations just feeling charged and good about things. Just thank you for being, a source of light in the world. And going back to your reference earlier, maybe we should close out with the Hail Holy Queen prayer. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Our Son, Holy Ghost,
Sweet
amen.
Amen.
Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, O most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary, pray for us, O Holy Mother of God, that we made worthy of the promises of Christ. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, amen.
Amen.
Hey, Bob, where can we get more of your content? Our viewers and listeners that want to connect with you, what's your preferred way to do that? Do you have a website? Do you have a social media profile? Which way should they go?
Actually, my LinkedIn profile is probably the best way to reach me. Yeah. And then, my stationcities.com is my website for my company right now. You can reach me through there as well. But I like LinkedIn. I do everything through LinkedIn. I know you and I are friends through LinkedIn.
We are.
We communicate through LinkedIn. I think it's a great social platform for especially business-minded people. So,
and I'll just put in a plug for your LinkedIn content. Bob, you're always sharing pictures and profiles of beautiful properties.
Thank you.
If anybody has any inclination to move to Connecticut or visit Connecticut, check out Bob's profile. He is showcasing gorgeous properties all the time that are just exquisite. So, folks, you've been listening to my conversation with Bob Murphy, real estate expert based in Connecticut. Bob's encouraging you to be optimistic and bullish on the real estate market. Don't listen to all the bad news that's out there. It's a great time to buy or sell a home. This has been the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by, the Catholic Finance Association and presented by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. We'll see you next time, folks. God bless.
All right. Thank you.